Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Tolhurst and welcome to Charlie Tolhurst Show for today, which is the 15th of August. One day before double jabbed Brits are free from isolation if you're from close contacts of COVID-19 cases. But yes, we're going to be bringing you all the latest news from across the world and also some of the big developments here in the UK. And I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers to round up all the latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hello. Hi. Hello.
Now, Zach, I want to start with the digest this week because there has been some big news regarding Afghanistan. The Taliban are taking over the majority of the country, and many countries across much of the world are redeploying troops over to Afghanistan as well. And the UK Parliament will be recalled on Wednesday to discuss this issue. Zach, what's your views on the current situation in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I've been following this all day, Charlie. It is such a sad day, to be honest. It shouldn't have got to this. It would have got to this. It shouldn't have got to this. It would have got to this. And whatever way you look to this. A bunch of terrorists are going to be running the government in Afghanistan. That's how we're going to sum it up, really. It's all thanks to several reasons to this, Charlie. It's because the Taliban have made advances through Afghan cities. They're about to take Kabul. They'll literally confirm that within probably hours. They're about to form a new government, one that they've done on their own power. And the reason why, well, you can blame many reasons. You could blame George W. Bush for this if you wanted to go that far. You could blame Tony Blair. You can blame Donald Trump. You could blame even Joe Biden for even this. You could blame the Afghan army for this. There are many finger points on this about this. And is this the ideal solution? Absolutely not. This is not a solution that you want to see, where citizens have been evacuated, embassies have been evacuated. But let me remind you who the Taliban are, Charlie. The Taliban, or as I know, is the Tali terrorists, because they are a terrorist organization, basically. They've got a history of things. They have a history of taking girls out of education, using them as sex slaves, murdering, slaughtering, beating innocent people. That's the Taliban. And it shouldn't have got to this, Charlie. It really shouldn't have done. You can kind of, let's say, who's the real blame? Who really is to blame for this? Well, this is historic, because think about it, Charlie. This is close to the eve of 9/11. This is literally a month before 9/11 where this takeover has just happened, where the Taliban has just took over the country again 20 years on. And to think that, we went to war, Charlie, with the United States to basically isolate and remove the Taliban because they were basically feeding up of terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. And 20 years on, they're back in power. And many thousands of civilians, basically, and citizens, soldiers, and the whole lot of that have basically died just to fight this for nothing. What are we gone for? It all seems a waste of time now, Charlie. It honestly feels like this has been all done for nothing. And you could blame the previous US administration, like the Trump administration, for even trying to talk to the Taliban and trying to get their troops withdraw then. And then you could also kind of blame Joe Biden as well for the way, he's handled this. I mean, their intelligence was basically saying 90 to 30 days until Kabul will be isolated. That was a couple of days ago. Then you look at Sunday today where we are, Kabul is basically isolated, about to be taken over. I mean, how on earth has that happened? How do you go from predicting 30 to 90 days to 72 hours. All this done. It's extraordinary how the Taliban have basically got to the point where they've scared people off to basically surrendering because they're so powerful that they've now got a government. They're just, whoa, right? No bloodshed, which is a good thing, but it's extraordinary how this has just developed so fast. And it resulted in, it's just a sad, honestly, Charlie, it's a horrendous situation. There are many people to blame in this. You've got the Afghan army who, despite being equipped by the US and the UK to build their own, to withhold themselves, have not been able to do that. And there are arguments for, with keeping troops, not keeping troops. I mean, my view is that, let's say this, Charlie, if we're going to prop up like the Afghan government, only for them to not be able to hold themselves, even with the tools they have, what was the point of all that time going there just to nothing? I have.
Yeah,
I have. It's insane. It's insane, Charlie.
I don't know where to start at. I don't know where to start with this. I have to say, I was a bit shocked to see some. I'm not going to share any images tonight with all the listeners on this show. I mean, I'm live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter if you want to listen to this. But I want to say that the situation in Afghanistan isn't looking great. And I think the situation is getting worse. It's clear there's a war over there, by the looks of it, in Syria and Afghanistan. It's been like that. Of course, you might remember a couple of years ago, I think the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani was murdered as well, which kind of, I think, started all this off. If you know what I mean. I know there was, Zach, you might have known this from experience early last year when we had the murdering of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, from this sort of escalating over that. I think it's interesting, to be honest, Zach, how that sort of that assassination of him ended up causing all this to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a different scenario though, Charlie. What really started all of this, if we're going to be technically that what really started this was Al Qaeda and 9/11. This is what's all started all of this. If we didn't have 9/11, we wouldn't have all this invading Afghanistan. We may have not even had, Al Qaeda would have literally going all over our lives right now. But it's nevertheless, Charlie, it's Al Qaeda, the Taliban, and their 9/11 terrorist attacks which started all of this. There's nothing else to describe it, and all this bombing in Iraq, where they basically hunted down Osama bin Laden and all that sort of thing. The Taliban's always been there, Charlie. The Taliban's always been there. It's just since 2001, the US and basically NATO have managed to control them to the point where they got rid of them, the Afghan army, to basically run themselves. And we've propped them up, the UK, the NATO, the US have propped them up over these years. And we've propped them up, but now since the withdrawal of troops, like the US, NATO troops, the UK troops, the Taliban have took advantage of that. It was easy. Who could saw that coming? It was so easy to see that coming. It wouldn't have happened if Trump got a second term and they followed the Taliban's agreement. That would have happened still, Charlie. Why would you negotiate with a bunch of terrorists who would just do what they want anyway? That's the point. And it still would have happened now. We still would have 6 months later. We would have money wasted. What else would you done? I'm just saying this. It's just the shock. Once this deal was done between the US and the Taliban, this allowed the Taliban in a bit of strength, Charlie, because it managed to rebuild their little army together, and they've now, because they managed to rebuild their army so much, they've managed to just take all the cities or the provinces, and now they're back in charge 20 years later. What a shambles!
It is. Please comment down below, guys, what you think of the situation in Afghanistan. Please send your comments in. I'd love to hear them. And of course, Parliament will be recalled on Wednesday here in the UK, in House of Commons, to debate this issue. Never Parliament's usually recalled over the summer, but because of the emergency issue, they'll be back on Wednesday sitting to discuss this issue. The main Parliament will officially return to sitting on the 6th of September. So please keep you updated on that. But moving on now from the Afghanistan news now to some news that I think might surprise a lot of people, but it doesn't surprise me because the continuation of the channel crossings, the illegal migrant crossings, keeps getting worse. The other day, 595 migrants attempted to cross. It was nearly 600 in a single day crossing the channel. And Zach, clearly the situation at the border at Dover not looking great at all.
Yeah, I think the other day's figures were 600, something like that. Something like that, I think, wasn't it? I think in terms of
it was very, very high.
Yeah. So yeah, that's incredible. That is quite something, Charlie, to see to hear. The amount of doing there, 600 going across the channel in a single day was that's in some ways it's kind of not surprised considering the developments, that's recently happened there. It is a big problem still. I know there's been briefings going around the weekend that Boris might sack Priti Patel, give Michael Gove that role. I mean, we've had this before, Charlie. It might happen, it might not, but we've had this all before. It's not happened yet. So I'm a bit skeptical on that front. But yeah, it's a big problem. And I'm not sure whatever minister you put in charge, then, this is still going to be a major problem, Charlie. This is going to be a major problem. Whatever is done about it, and it's not going to get fixed easily. I suppose the government's calculation on this is, let's get the borders bill through Parliament into law, and maybe this could not really be much of an issue. It will take some time to see whether that has the effect. But at the moment, Charlie, I think the gamble from the government is let's get that passed, and maybe we'll fix all the problems. I should add as well, Charlie. There's going to be an immediate problem for the government now, and I should add as well, because this kind of connects to what we're saying. Many Afghans, have actually fled Kabul and Afghanistan. So you're going to have thousands and thousands of people to cross the border and want to go somewhere, Charlie. Some of them are going to want to come here. So, and if that develops quickly, then we've got a big problem, Charlie. We have a big problem. I just want to point that out because that's going to be another crisis that's going to happen now. There's going to be a refugee crisis, Charlie. Because the amount of people that are going to come in because they've been fleeing Afghanistan and all these war areas where the Tali terrorists are basically re-giving birth, and they're going to try and get into Iran, which they're going to be may well get in. They're probably going to get to Turkey, which they're not going to. The Home Office thinking on this is that this probably set a bad example for allowing refugees in there everywhere, but we can't let refugees from France or something like that. I mean, that's a ridiculous excuse, I think. But there now is going to be calls, I think, Charlie, to home these refugees in our country if they can't get anywhere else. This is going to be a big problem, Charlie. We're going to have a migrant crisis. We're going to have a refugee crisis. There's an imminent problem that the government needs to realise that it's on its way.
It's I have to say, I mean, over 11,000 people crossing the channel this year is a new record. I can't believe the numbers. And actually, during the week, one person died. I think it was on Thursday who attempted to make the dangerous crossing. As I've said, this crossing between France and Dover, that route is one of the most dangerous routes in the world. It is one that if you sink your dinghy, there's a chance you could drown. And one of the migrants sadly died last week. My thoughts are with him and his family right now, because I'm sure it's going to be very difficult for the family of that migrant to convey their feelings after he sadly passed away last week. But it shows you the gravity of the situation at Dover is not improving. And please, Priti Patel, sort this issue out. It's just getting worse. So please comment, guys, down below what you think about the latest news on the current situation in the channel. But that's that from the digest. We're going to come back to that news later on as well. But we're going to move on now to Sportsround because we are going to be talking about football to start off with. Premier League back this weekend. And the first match of the season saw Arsenal with a shock defeat at Brentford. But also, Zach, big results over the weekend for many other teams as well.
Yes, Charlie, I've been watching the action today. It's been a hell. Do you know what? I think it's been a hell of a weekend, Charlie, of football action. Let me go through the results here, actually, because there's a ton of results that should be mentioned, really, in here. And let's start off Brentford, as you said, Charlie, 2-0. They're really promoted Brentford, winning 2-0 against Arsenal. A very sloppy, useless defence Arsenal, which is just such a common name I can give to Arsenal these days. 2-0 loss there. And then we had Manchester United lead. That was a 5-1 victory for Manchester United, Charlie. That was quite something. I mean, United have actually had success against Leeds in these matches. I think the last time it was 6-2, something like 6-1 or something. And then they got 5-1 this time. Here, let's talk Leicester. That's my team. I support 1-0 against Wolves. Getting there. Chelsea, good start for them. 3-0. They defeated Crystal Palace. The new manager, Patrick
Vieira.
Vieira. Yeah, there we go. Newly promoted Watford also won as well, Charlie. 3-2. Great result from them. Obviously, Aston Villa weakened without Jack Grealish now, who's gone to City. We'll come back to that in a moment. Everton 3-1 against Southampton. They went down in the first place and then came from 1 goal to win 3-1. Burnley losing to Brighton, very last minute as well for them. And 3-0 win for Liverpool against Norwich. And let's go to today's, Charlie, because it was a 4-2 win for West Ham. Came from behind. Did a pretty good job. And Antonio was scoring and up there with all-time scores for West Ham now. And wow, let's talk about this short result, Charlie. 1-0 win for Spurs against Man City. What a brilliant performance by Spurs, I have to say. Under the new manager, Nuno Espirito. Very good. It was a fun match to watch. Both teams were exciting. Tottenham managed to hold on thanks to a goal from him and Son. And they were, I think, the big winners of this weekend, I think, with a 1-0 victory against Man City. They're back next weekend. It kicks off with Liverpool Burnley. The highlights include Arsenal v Chelsea on the Sunday next week and West Ham v Leicester on the Monday night. That would be all to play for still that weekend.
Yes. Oh, Zach, I can't wait for the next week round of fixtures. It's going to be amazing. And obviously, big shock of the weekend for me was the Brentford-Arsenal game. Brentford, newly promoted, beating Arsenal 2-0. Big result for Brentford because that is a shock that Arsenal have had another disastrous start to the season. But we'll let you know, guys, with the football, next weekend is the date. Next Saturday, the 21st of August. I'm just checking the date. The 21st of August is the next round of fixtures. But moving on now from football to Formula E. Final round of the, the final 2 races of the season in Berlin, the capital of Germany, at the Tempelhof Airport circuit. And we have a new champion. Nick de Vries wins his first ever title, and Mercedes wrap up the Constructors' Championship Formula E. But Zach, interesting weekend for Formula E going to Berlin because there was a few surprises along the way.
Yes. Wow. I have to say, Charlie, watching Formula E today, that was quite something. From start to finish, title contenders crashing out very early on the race today. It really was something. So let's start off with what happened with Mitch Evans, who was seriously in championship contention. Didn't get away from the start and got also ran from Mortara. It was a bizarre sight to see a Formula E car not getting off the grid, Charlie. And there was, I think, Mitch Evans was the same as a failure on the system just as they're about to go, which was very unlucky timing. But nevertheless, he didn't get going and got hit by Edward Mortara. The second one I want to point out, Charlie, as well, is Jake Dennis. Wow, he was so close also to win a championship on the position he was in. He would have been tied on points had he been in the position that he was and finished there. And if it was, let's say, lap 2 or something, 3. And he ended up crashing into the wall as well. And I'm thinking, wow, a literally championship contender by championship contender going out. Who else as well? DaCosta crashed as well. And De Vries finished 8th, which was enough to give him the title today. So Norman Natter was the winner. Oliver Owen was 2nd. Van Dorn 3rd. Lotter was 4th. And Mercedes winning the Constructors' Championship. Well, there's been reports of the weekend, Charlie, Mercedes are actually going to pull out at the end of the season, which is quite something, considering they've just won the title. And that will make it 3 out that will be going at the end of the season at this rate, because BMW Audi are going. So, yeah, this is basically a last hurrah, I think, Charlie. Before for Mercedes. And it would been quite something to watch.
Yeah. I have to say as well, Zach, I've just got the results up here. So Norman Nato winning from Oliver Rowland in the Nissan 2nd. Van Dorn 3rd. I think also Van Dorn secured Mercedes the team's championship there. Andre Lotterer 4th. Alex Sims 5th. Wehrlein 6th. Sam Bird finished 7th after having a disaster in race 1, where he, I think, retired once again. Nick De Vries was 8th for Mercedes. Rene Rast 9th, finished where he was in race 1. Tom Blomqvist actually finishing 10th for Neo. So not a bad result there for Tom Blomqvist, and points on the board for him. But yeah, the championship, Zach, Nick De Vries winning that in the end by a very small margin. I'm not sure what the margin was, but I think it was a couple of points.
Yeah.
In the end there. But Formula E. I've got actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the highlights of the first lap crash here at Formula E on this video. So please, guys, you can enjoy the video. We're just going to play some best moments from the final round in Berlin. Have a listen to this.
We go green in Berlin, and Evans doesn't move, and he's been hit. Mitch Evans has been hit by Eduardo Mortara. 2 title contenders out instantly. What an utter disaster for them. And suddenly, Nick De Vries and Jake Dennis are looking in the box seats. You could not have predicted it. You could not have foreseen it. And the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship takes another outrageous turn in the final race of the season. The safety car is deployed instantly. Evans' car just did not move. None of us thought that was going to happen. Green flag, and Stoffel Van Dorn gets the racing going again. And there's a huge gap back to the Nissan of Sebastian Buemi. And Jake Dennis is going on the attack immediately. And there's a look up the inside, but Dennis is in the wall. Jake Dennis has lost it, and Dennis has crashed out. What on earth is going on in this title decider? Dennis in the wall, out of the race. Jake Dennis jumps out of the car. Green flag again, and Stoffel Van Dorn is leading, but he's only just ahead of Oliver Rowland. Does Van Dorn activate attack mode? No, but Rowland does. So Rowland goes through his first attack mode.
Norman Nato goes for the lead down inside into turn 1.
Oh, wide there, Stoffel Van Dorn. He's made a mistake, and Alexander Sims is going to get through here. Side by side into turn 3. 20 minutes plus 1 lap to go. Rowland going for it on Van Dorn. Van Dorn's not in attack mode, and Rowland makes the move. And there goes De Vries. Nick De Vries going through, and he gets up into 6th position then. And there's the move from Rowland. Rowland gets through up into 3rd position. Nick De Vries is having an absolutely storming drive, and it is a safety car. Safety car deployed. This is what happened to DaCosta. It's Lucas de Grassi he's fighting with here in the Audi. De Grassi sells him the dummy. Goes up the inside.
Oh, Lucas.
Safety car in this lap, and we're going to get racing back underway. In comes the mini electric pace setter. Oliver Rowland is absolutely on it. He's got a brilliant restart. He's side by side, and Alexander Sims is there as well. Nato chops across the front to the outside. Goes Alexander Sims. They go late on the brakes. There's a bit of contact. Rowland nudging the back of Norman Nato, the race leader.
He goes for the move, a late defence from Alexander Sims. Here comes De Vries.
De Vries snags it. Wow, what a move. But then there comes the Porsche of Pascal Wehrlein. Wehrlein gets ahead of Sims as well. And there to the outside. Oh, Sims fighting back. 3 wide into 2. It's Lotterer who's trying to get past, and De Vries has lost it. And now they're 3 wide, coming towards turn 3. And this is the championship leader. And there's contact. The 2 Mercedes almost wiped out together. De Vries is on the marbles. He's now back behind the Porsches. De Vries has all the way dropped back to 7th place. And there goes Van Dorn up into 3rd. Stoffel Van Dorn into 3rd position.
I feel like I'm in a bit of a target at the moment.
See why?
Well, that's a late one, and he sent it! Oh, my goodness me! Nick De Vries put into the wall by Pascal Wehrlein. He went for it so late in the day, Nick De Vries, and his steering's bent.
Lotter again. I mean, he goes Sims and he does it, but has he slowed it down enough?
Oh, wheel banging, and these 2 have come together before. They put each other in the wall in Puebla, and Sims is leading on Lotterer onto the brakes into 2. Lotterer gets the move. Sims tries to get the drive out, coming towards turn 3. Lotterer moves across, can't quite get past. Alexander Sims is defending like his life depends on it, and De Vries has to almost come to a halt to not go into the back, and there's even hit from behind from Shonner and Byrne. And there comes Sam Byrne. Where on earth does Byrne come from? And he goes through into turn 3. Sam Byrne, all of a sudden, is up into 7th place. De Vries will still win the championship if he finishes here. And is that a move? Up the inside, it's coming Byrne. Oh, they're interlocked. Ratchet has gone for Byrne. Norman Nato is going to win for the first time in the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. Nato wins. Rowland 2nd. Van Dorn is 3rd. The light for Rocket Venturi. But here comes Nick De Vries, the Mercedes EQ driver, out across the line. He finishes in 8th place, and he wins the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship.
What a result for Nick De Vries, who wins his first ever Formula E championship. Well done to him, and what a race that. My highlight had to be that start line whack for Mitch Evans.
Yeah, that was quite something, Charlie. That wasn't in the script, seeing Mitch Evans not pull away and Edmond Mortara hitting him. That wipes out 2 championship contenders within a space of a couple of meters. Yeah, quite something. And then I thought Nick De Vries and Stoffel Van Dorn was going to come together at one point as well. Because you do 3 wide going through the straights. I thought they wouldn't make the corners. Oh, that was a race to lose track of and keep you on your seats. That was very good, Charlie.
Yeah, I have to say as well, Antonio Felix da Costa and DS de Cheetah, his weekend went downhill with a collision with Lucas Di Grassi in the Audi. Pretty much ended both of their championship aspirations and attempts to score big points as well. But yeah, Formula E will be back next year. We don't know when it's going to start, but we'll let you know when the first races. The calendar has been announced, but we'll keep you updated on the news regarding Formula E. But we're going to move on now from Sportsround to Charlie's good news, because I have got a few good news stories to talk about right now. And we're going to start with the news on Cargo Bikes claimed CO2 victory over its bleaching rivals. A report published on Thursday confirmed something that many people already know. Cargo bikes are the fastest and greenest ways to transport goods across a busy city. Not just a bit quicker either. Researchers found that electric cargo bikes delivered goods about 60% faster than vans in central London while producing 90% fewer emissions. Little wonder they're being touted as the future of urban transport. The study was conducted by the University of Westminster's Active Travel Academy, which analyses GPS data from a cargo bike delivery company, PedalMe. The startup is one of a number of pedal-powered firms shaking up deliveries across London. Recent estimates from Europe suggest that 51% of all freight journeys in the city could be replaced by cargo bike. So very interesting news indeed. Also as well, pine martens returned to southern England. Conversationists confirmed this week that pine martens have returned to southern England. The animals were once widespread in the UK, but the numbers plummeted in the 20th century due to habitat loss and hunting. Northern England, Scotland and Wales are believed to be the last of their strongholds. Over the years, reported pine marten sightings in New Forest offered hope that the species had clung on further south. This week, ecologists confirmed that it had, and there was now a viable population there. Oh, that was amazing as well. And also, I found an interesting story from Wales this week. Wales had pledged to build 20,000 green social homes. Now, on Wednesday of last week, it was announced that 20,000 low-carbon social homes are to be built in Wales. The government there, which of course is led by Mark Drakeford, said there will be houses would be available for rent and will produce more energy than they use. The proposals were announced by a climate change minister, Julie James, during a visit to one of Wales' first positive energy social housing schemes. Residents moved into Bridge End development in January and have since been receiving negative energy bills. Alan King, who lives in one of the properties with his wife, Anne-Marie, and their 3 children, said the extra money we are saving in our household has allowed us to spend more on healthy, fresh food and safer for our children's school uniforms and special occasions. So, yes, that is my good news this week. We'll do it all again next week. A quick little good news update, talking about positive news. That's all I can say from Charlie's good news. But moving on from that now to In the Spotlight. This is the segment of the show which will focus on talking about news stories that matter to you. And I'm going to start In the Spotlight off by the latest news from the Scottish Government over new transgender rules coming into that country. And Zach, what do you make of Nicola Sturgeon's announcement on these new transgender rules?
It's a bit bizarre, this set of rules, really, Charlie, because while I understand it, children as young as 4 could self-identify as a certain gender. The teachers don't need to tell the parents about it, and they don't, the teachers can't even dispute it. I mean, what intelligent child would know about transforming into a different gender at 4 years old? They'll be learning their ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and yet they're young as 4. Apparently, the Scottish government think they can decide their own genders. Right, okay, that's a bit fantasy thinking from the Scottish government. And the idea that the teachers are not going to tell their own parents about it is a bit dangerous, isn't it? What in the right mind thinks that, oh yeah, a boy, we're gonna self-identify a boy at 4 years old. We're gonna self-identify this kid at 4, who's 4, and he's trying to find their sexual identity at 4. No, please. No, nobody understands how stupid this sounds. You understand it watching a kids show. Really, if this is a fantasy kids show that that's made about fiction and everything like that, not a blooming 4-year-old in real life being told that they could self-identify, the teachers can't dispute it, the teachers don't have to tell the blooming parents about it. Holy moly! Look, I support people's rights. Generally, I do. But 4? You self-identify as a certain gender at 4? Or not a gender if you call yourself non-binary? What is this about? What intelligent mind people think this is a good idea? I don't get it.
It's woke watch, this news story. I have to say it's woke watch that. What are they trying to do? It's clear. I have to say, I watched an interview on GB News the other day. I think the leader of the Scottish Family Party was on there. I forgot his name. I think his name's Richard someone. I forgot who the member was, but it was someone from the Scottish Family Party. A representative was speaking on GB News the other day about this transgender chat rule, and he said it's ludicrous. Like it's outrageous. It's just a complete craziness. This is one crippling problem with the SNP. The SNP seem to think that children are crazy, that they are controlled like robots.
I can understand if you're sort of 18 or 20, you understand transgenderism and genderism and stuff like that. But God Almighty, at 4, my God, who in the right mind could think that people as young as 4 could self-identify as a certain gender and keep their parents hidden in the dark about it, and not allow the teachers to even say a pippy about it?
Oh.
I don't mind it if you're say 20 or something. It's just a deranged lunacy that that kids as young as 4, when they can't even know how to type a few words or can't even know what 2 + 2 is. You have to do the Big Shack methods to find out how stupid this is. What intelligence going through that? Who thinks, oh yeah, I self-identify my children at 4, don't need to know about it? What?
Oh, Jesus. It's unbelievable. What is going on with the SNP? This is just crazy. I have to say, a lot of kids in Scotland go back to school tomorrow, I believe. And they're the first in the country to go back, first in the UK. Oh, God. It's crazy. I don't understand this. Please comment down below, guys, what you think of this change, because I think it's ludicrous. It's just a pile of woke misery. Please let me know, because this is crazy. So that's the first news story within the spotlight. The second big news story I'm going to be talking about is results day. Last week, we had the results day for GCSEs and A-levels. And unlike last year, where we had a fiasco of exam grades children being downgraded, it was the opposite this year. A lot of children got upgraded their results. And Zach, what do you make of the results day for GCSE and A-level students this year?
Yeah, they're at the highest. I suppose that can only be good. Some will say that's an unfair comparison because obviously this year it was teacher grades from the teachers directly this year rather than the fiasco of an algorithm and then going back to teacher grades for some of it. So, yeah, I suppose it can only be a good thing that grades have gone up. Then the only thing is that you have the problem then otherwise, though, Charlie, is then you have to have universities, you have to admit loads of children who are probably overcapacitated. About this, I suppose it's good in some ways that, many young people are getting good grades, having their future decided, get into places that they want to do, get into their first choices. The only thing is that you could say, and on the other side, Charlie, is that consistency about teacher grading. Some teachers might lean towards others, more better results towards others, favoritism, all that. Come up those conspiracies if we want to. There is a problem that needs to be fixed to make this fair in the future, Charlie. And I think there's going to be a big debate over this next year because it's clear that some people find this unfair, some people have. It needs to be fixed next year.
Yeah, I was just looking up the percentage. I was just going to look up whilst I'm here about these exam grades because the BBC actually sent an article out the other day on these GCSE results, and I just wanted to give some statistics whilst I'm here. And trust me, they've actually said it's a hell grading exams. But I'm just going to now officially share my screen with you guys on this podcast this evening, once again tonight, over this. So just having a look at this article here, you can actually see someone said, this is basically what someone said, thousands of course received their results last week. A 28-year-old, this is 28-year-old person, student who said he doesn't understand or doesn't want to be identified for fear of any backlash. Says the pressure of deciding marks for students who only taught virtually has been one of the hardest periods of this career. These were actually some teachers, I think, or GCSE students that have actually said this. One of them said, I did nothing for myself. Someone was like saying it's like preparing for a court. Holly Mazior said she felt really confident with one of the grades she gave to her students. Faced the biggest hurdles is what for Jess Toast 24, last year has been one of the most challenging for her. So in general, I mean, the grades, like the A-level top grades as well, have been reaching new highs. Like I've just got on here, 44.8% of people actually got A star or higher. As well, 38.5% higher than, in fact, of higher grades. Like it's interesting because many students, Zach, are getting like higher courses, higher grades in like different courses like sociology, different higher grades, for example, in like media and production. It really changes like the outcome of some of these grades for the GCSEs and A levels, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, consistency. There's the changes in the system all these years, understandable reasons. You think COVID, cancelled exams, really do change the system a little bit in how it can all be marked and that sort of thing. And it's about consistency, fairness, ensuring that, you know, that there's no malicious practices. I'm sure teachers have done their best, Charlie. But I suppose in some ways you need to go back to the centralised system next year of taking exams, you know, and then basically marking on how much you got really and going to the external exam markers who understand the system. I suppose that's how it should be going back to next year. Because although then you get the question of, is that fair when everyone else got their teachers mark them for them? Mate, nah. Yeah, you can understand that this is pressure on teachers to find students the right place. Then students decide where they need to go and whether they got their first choices or not. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, Charlie. It is a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is. So I hope everyone over the last week, if they've got their results, please send us your comments. I'm live from Charlie Tolhurst, live on the Charlie Tolhurst Show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you've got any questions about your results, please send us comments. We'd love to listen to you because people have, as I've said, I've spoken to people over the last week who've got like distinctions or in their certain courses, like in media, production. As I said, you've got so many educational facilities do offer these courses. As you said, if you're planning for September, just let me know because you want to achieve. People want to achieve their dreams, get into colleges, universities. It is very, very important. It only works if we have a very effective exam grading system, which obviously over the last couple of years has been a little bit wonky, should I say, in some places. But we're going to move on now from the UK to Australia because unfortunately, Zach, Australia is going backwards in COVID-19 because I have to say, I looked at the scenes yesterday in New South Wales. It's clear that the vaccine rollout there needs to be sped up if they're going to get out of lockdown because they have been under lockdown now for so long, especially in Sydney. What is going on over there?
Yeah, let me show you the cases number, Charlie. The cases that in Australia there was 440. It's a 7-day average is 395. Now let's talk about where we were. 278 last week, 295 7-day average this week. There has been new measures in place, Charlie. You know, it's a bigger lockdown than it was before as well, Charlie, because of the you know, New South Wales. All of it's gone into lockdown. That's the situation, Charlie, there as well. So it's another lockdown, and you know, it's Yeah, it's the vaccine rollout's not helped as well. Those areas that were not in lockdown now go into lockdown. It's a mess, Charlie. I've noticed that there's more social distancing in the Australian Parliament now and face masks compared to a few months ago, where they were packed in the chambers. Charlie, I've just thought I'd point that one out. But yeah, New South Wales in lockdown again because the case numbers have gone up so much.
Yeah, the other day, 466 new infections got recorded in New South Wales. It shows you that the Delta variant or the B1117-2 variant that originated from India is that much more transmissible. And as I've said, I have to say this, the lockdown there isn't working. It's trying to stop the virus spreading, but it's not working. There's now what? I've just read up in Sydney. There is now 30 new COVID exposure sites that have just been announced from the Mail Online. Dubbo in the States Far West remains a major area of concern with 21 new cases. There's been several new exposure sites, which is basically where how these cases are found. Exposure sites are basically where an outbreak's occurred, so where one person tests positive and then there's a whole host of people who've been in contact with that person have to isolate, get a test. It's basically like different businesses have different exposure sites. And basically this is how it starts off an outbreak. It's very complicated, but trust me, the track and trace teams over there are having to do an awfully difficult job in New South Wales. And let me just say this, Zach, lockdown compliance in Australia, especially if you're in Melbourne or New South Wales right now, I still saw a lot of people going out. And I think some areas might have had some protests going on.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, generally, not Australians follow instructions to lockdown. I think they're normally pretty supportive of it. I think you can obviously still go out for shopping and essentials and stuff like that if you need to, which is probably what people end up doing and stuff like that. Obviously, I imagine there's curfews, the stay-at-home orders, and all that sort of thing like that, Charlie. But nevertheless, it's a big problem because the way out of this, Charlie, is vaccines. And vaccines in Australia have been not very fast, really, to be fair, Charlie. They're still not very fast. That's really what's going on there, Charlie. So, yeah, still a big problem for the Australian government and the devolved governments there.
Yeah, I have to say as well, Melbourne are still in lockdown again. I mean, Canberra, lockdown after one case. Wow, it is incredible how quick these are like lightning lockdowns that have been put in. I have to say, Zach, as well, I think Australia right now is like what we were a year ago. It's like that. It's like the pandemic over there started off again. It started all over in Australia properly. Do you think that?
Yeah, pretty much. If we're gonna, be kind on that front, it's still vaccines are the only way out of this, Charlie. There, and the vaccines are they're not getting very much there, are they?
No.
So
20%. I think something like that, 20% or slightly higher fully vaccinated. It's not good enough. And as I've said, guys, the figures are not great in Australia. We'll keep you posted on the news. But yeah, Australia at the moment still not looking great for that. But now we're going to move on to the final part of the show. After that, we're going to move on now to the final part of the show regarding the news of the last week. And I want to talk about something not about coronavirus and not about mainstream news. We have a couple of things to chat about. Obviously, GB News has confirmed in the coming weeks there will be 3 new political shows going online. And Zach, what do you make of the 3 new shows going on GB News?
Yeah, so from what I read, they're going to try and up the political coverage a little bit. I think they're going to be about half an hour shows, I believe. So there's going to be one morning, one the midday, one the afternoon, with the likes of Tom Harwood, Lloyd Pirro, and Darren McAfee, basically increasing Westminster coverage for about 30 minutes, total 90 minutes a day, really. 30 minutes each show. So 9 a.m., 12 p.m., I think 3:30, I believe, is the one.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be done there. So, yeah, that's what's happening on that front. I think it's going to be political coverage, really. That's quite something, considering they were supposed to be getting out and about and not really talking about what's happening in Westminster. They're putting 90 minutes per day more now of that. I mean, I suppose you can't really tell the difference, really, because they talk about what's happening outside all half the time. Although Westminster is still important in some ways, you think about it. But yeah, that's what's happening on that front.
Yeah. So that's GB News covered. But the final part I'm going to talk about tonight is spiking, because unfortunately during the week, two young girls, Millie Taplin and Sophie Pierce, who are both under the age of 20, got spiked after going to a nightclub. Sophie Pierce was up in Leicester's Royal Infirmary Hospital the other night, who's only 19 years old, suffered 3 seizures and then was on a heart monitor after suffering a spike after having a drink at a nightclub. And also earlier in the week, on this morning, another girl also was left partially paralysed. Zach, what do you make of these scenes of young people being spiked, especially in nightclubs?
Well, it's dangerous. I want people to have good times, nightclubs and everything like that. But you have these idiots that go around, buy drugs, put drugs in drinks, and then what's happened? People get poisoned, they get injured, their body goes into meltdown. It's ridiculous, Charlie. Honestly, people are so sad, pathetic. And yeah, it's injuring people. It's a horrible situation.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
I know, and I have to say as well, when I heard the 2 stories, especially the one on this morning the other day, I felt so sorry for one of the girls, for Molly Taplin, because she couldn't even speak. She lost all of her senses of smell. No, not sense of smell. She lost all of her speech. She couldn't walk. She couldn't talk. She had to have lots of surgery done. And she apparently, the other one who I read up the other day, had a Class B drug, ketamine. Drugs are horrible for you, honestly. I mean, what are these idiots doing, putting alcohol in drinks out? Because the reaction some of these people have got from some of these Class B drugs has been horrendous.
Yeah.
It's affected their life.
Yeah, I know. And I think what needs to happen, Charlie, is those saddos and morons who put the spiked drinks in the first place, they're the ones that should be going down for it, Charlie. Not the one that innocent drink. I mean, people drink too much, their behaviour changes anyway, and they get a bit silly at times. I mean, I personally wouldn't. That's why I don't drink myself, Charlie, because I don't like behaviour changes and mad behaviour changes from drinking. And I just don't like drinking anyway. That's just me. I know there'll be many others that just want to drink, have fun. They'll probably be responsible, and there's others that will just take it to the limits and go off completely the track and risk themselves. I'm not one of those persons. And hearing all these spike stories is very worrying. And it's part of the reason why I wouldn't bother drinking at all.
Zach, the question is, should drinks like alcohol be thoroughly, when they're being prepared, by the staff, say in a hospitality venue, like the bar, in the bar or something like that, should they be thoroughly checked, and should they go through regulatory processes before they're actually allowed to be like served in
Oh,
these hospitality venues.
Oh yeah, of course. That should happen. I think it's not the staff. I think it's other people's mates that are the problem, really, Charlie, by spiking the drinks in the first place. I don't think the staff do it normally. I think people's friends who, when they get, excited and everything, and people who buy drugs are the ones that, put them in the drink in the first place. If you're druggy or something like that, it's obvious. Like if you smoke or something, you can more likely associate someone with a drug or something like that. If you buy spikes and stuff like that, they're the ones that make you suspicious, really, Charlie. And it'll be very it's obviously not that obvious to point out a person that could spike a drink or anything like that. But there's always signs there.
I mean, Zach, this question is the final question before we wrap this up, and this is a bit of a political question here. Do you think the government need to potentially, like at some of these nightclubs or some of these, say, like nightclubs, for example, should they be deploying more police officers to essentially like stop people bringing drugs into, say, nightclubs, just in case, for example, these drinks get spiked? Do you think that should happen?
I think they should check people before they go in and out. That's the thing, though, Charlie. I think effectively doing their job, really, checking people when they go in, checking people out. They should really have these airport-style checks in these nightclubs, Charlie, where they check your pockets, check everything. And if they don't like it, then they can't be refused access and all that sort of thing. So I think that's what should happen. Yeah.
I agree, Zach, as well, because you don't want people bringing in dangerous objects like weapons, drugs. Drugs are dangerous. Trust me, because I've seen people arrested for this. Like, you got to look at McPartlin when he was drinking and he crashed a Mini in 2018 and he was taken out of he decided to go into rehab. You think people like that, obviously that's not spiking. That's drink driving. That's different. Think about what crimes people have committed. Famous celebrities, say the least, have committed crimes like this. We've got to try and make sure that people are behaving themselves, especially going out to nightclubs, where I do think checks need to be required. I mean, it's like the vaccine passport debate. Should we have a vaccine passport to go into a nightclub? I'm different on that. I think vaccine passports for nightclubs are different. However, though, because vaccine passports, let's be honest with you, are more of a political issue. But as for checking people's pockets or checking over, like metal detectors, scanning people over, they should be maximally used. They should be complete use. And Zach, do you think that metal detectors would be a way of stepping up enforcement?
Probably. I mean, as I said, airport-style checks, physical checks, metal detector checks, anything to do with something like that should be needed. I think it's all good enough just buying a ticket and everything and then being allowed in. And then proof your tickets, but also I think they should check you just in case you got anything stupid on you, really, to be fair. Because people will probably go in secretly. And, bring drugs to them, put them in drinks, spike the drink, and a person's health situation is ruined then.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say that. And I think there should be more police presence at nightclubs as well. And just more police presence in general, because if you think about it, in nightclubs, this is where some crime can happen. And particularly in London, where you're going to get a lot of it, where there's more like the West End and stuff like that, where there is nightclubs, you need to be aware of this. It's a serious issue indeed, and it has to be dealt with. Well, unfortunately, guys, that is all we've got time for tonight on the Charlie Tolhurst show. I hope everyone has enjoyed the show. I know we didn't end. I know the ending wasn't particularly positive, but we just want to bring the message across that this news that we brought to you just before we finished the show is very, very important, because as you'd have seen on the news this week, these two young girls did suffer horrible reactions to these drinks, and it just goes by without saying that something like this is very, very dangerous. And we really want to repeat the message that if you are going to any of these venues whilst they're open, please make sure that you think twice about what you are taking, especially if you are someone who has committed if you've had drugs before or do anything like, make sure you do not take them to the nightclub. So I thought I'd mention that, guys. But in terms of all the news, we'll be back again next week. And thank you for listening to the Charlie Tolhurst Show. I'm your presenter, Charlie Tolhurst, and I will see you again next week, next Sunday for around the same time, just after 8 o'clock for another edition of the Charlie Tolhurst Show. Thank you for listening, everyone, and take care and stay safe. Goodbye.